Shalom, and thank you for watching this video from HaDerekh Synagogue. I hope you are liking the content we are bringing you. If you could like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, that will greatly help us. And to further help bring great content to you from our teachers, if you could please consider to donate to HaDerekh Synagogue. The link is in the description box below. Thank you for watching.
When you come into the land which I give you, then the land will keep a Shabbat to Hashem. So before I go any further, what is the Shabbat for the land? Okay, well, usually people say, well, the land gets its rest, right? The year we entered the land, the year 2488, we neither plowed nor sowed. This was a year of rest for the land, a year of, I'll put rest in quotes. So every seventh year thereafter was supposed to be another rest for the land as well. But we know how well we obeyed that edict because we got kicked out because of our lack of obeying that edict. So I asked myself, why? Why did the land require a Shabbos rest? The land doesn't miraculously cease providing nourishment for plants, so it's not getting a rest anyway. God commanded that any food the land spontaneously produced was for the consumption of all Israel, and that included the gerim and included the animals that lived on the land. It was free for everybody. But I think the answer is found when we consider for whom the land produces. In 6 years, the land produces for the family caring for the land, and that is the family to whom the lot fell. Whether Shabbos, weekday, or holiday, the land continues to produce for the well-being and the profit of the people to whom the land fell, and for the plants and the animals that rely on the ground. The weekly Shabbos is not a moment of rest for the land. By pulling 1 full year out of 7 from the cycle of never-ending servitude to the family allotted to it, the end result becomes the same, a 6-to-1 servitude to non-servitude, or Hulin to Kodesh, or mundane to holy. That's a ratio, by the way. And that ratio is maintained. So consider this. Here's some math for you. You know, we like to talk about tractate Shabbos in the Talmud as being the tractate of numbers, and it really is. So here's some numbers for you. There are 52 Shabbosim, or Shabbosos, or Shabbats in a year. So in 6 years' time, we have 52 times 6, which comes up to 312 Shabbosim. Additionally, over the course of 7 years, we gain 7 days, 6 days plus a leap year. And with it, 1 additional Shabbos, making a total of 313. And yes, I know that with the way that, you know, the leap years work on the, is it the Gregorian calendar? Yeah, you know, sometimes there'll be 2, but don't let that bother you. So how many holidays are also considered a Shabbos per year? Well, let's count them. There's Rosh Chodesh, Yom Kippur, the first and last days of Sukkot. Then we have the first and last days of Pesach, and then we have Shavuos. So that's 7. So if you take those 7, multiply that by 6, you end up with 42, which is kind of interesting if you like to dabble in Daniel, or if you, and then be wrong, or the computation of the supercomputer Deep Thought from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah. So 313 plus 42 comes up to 354. Does that number mean anything to anybody? That is the length of the standard Jewish year. This makes a year worth of Shabbosim the land did not get to enjoy during the last 6 years. But still, even on that year, the land still produces. But what's different here, though, is that the land and its produce is pulled from the domain of the caretaking family and is given to Hashem to distribute to all of Israel. The land gets its Shabbos by not being a servant of mankind, of that family, for a year. That's where its Shabbat rest comes from. So let me ask you, are you bothered by the fact that I used a solar calendar of 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 45 seconds? But let me ask you this. Upon which is the Jewish calendar based, the moon or the sun? Okay, the moon. However, the sun is used to determine when Pesach is going to land in the year, because it has to land in spring. The moon, well, that controls all the other holidays and Rosh Chodesh. The sun is used to determine the observance of Shabbos. So the answer is both, the sun and the moon. We have what is called a lunisolar calendar, and this calendar has been around with us since Matan Torah. Now, the Elephantine papyri, which is kind of a new discovery for me, these were discovered in Upper Egypt, and they date to the 5th century BCE. That's quite a while ago. And it mentions the Jewish exilic community in Elephantine, and that they used the month names parallel to the biblical references. So reading that document, it was fun to see Nisan and Mar Cheshvan and Elul written in the text from that long ago. Then there's the Dead Sea Scrolls. These document the calendar calculations that match and interact with the lunar and solar cycles. There are 19 documents or fragments thereof of the calendrical and Mishmaros, which is for the Jewish society there. And what's interesting is they call themselves the community of the renewed covenant. For the Qumran community, the covenantal renewal was a reassertion of Torah and our historic methodology of obedience. And that's what we should be emulating as well. Flavius Josephus was a first century Jewish historian. He outlines Jewish festivals and months, corroborating the biblical naming and sequence of months. And that comes from his Antiquity of the Jews, Volume 3. So, the Torah makes it clear we are to keep the Shabbos, but would you agree that it is not so clear as when it begins? I mean, after all, when we look at the creation, it says, and there was evening and there was morning, day 1, day 2. But what does it mean, evening? I mean, if I call somebody at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and it's sun out, I'd say, hey, good evening. Our ancestors, they looked at every possibility to help assure what became halakha was as accurate as it possibly could be. Some rabbis suggested that the Shabbos should begin when the disk of the sun touched the horizon. Some said, no, it begins when the sun is completely below the horizon. Then there's compromisers who said, it's kind of the halfway point. Whichever the belief, candle lighting was determined to be some minutes, be it 18 or 22, 30, or even 40 minutes before the most lenient observance, which in this case is the disk of the sun disappearing under the horizon. That became halacha. In like manner, Shabbos ends in like conditions. But Shabbat does not begin when we traditionally light the candles. We light the candles because we don't want to light the candles on Shabbos. We want to light the candles before. Rabbeinu Tam, on the other hand, taught that Shabbos begins and ends much later than anyone else would have considered, when the light of the sun no longer was visible. The Hungarian Jews who followed Rabbeinu Tam lit Shabbos candles when it was pitch black, a time when most other Jews believed such activities desecrated the Shabbos. To this day, we follow Rabbeinu Tam to end Shabbos. That's when we light the Havdalah candles. So, the Hungarian Jews who followed him from the beginning to the end, I kind of credit them because they're a lot more consistent than we are. The point of this is to say that there is two parts to every command in Torah. There is the actual mitzvah, which we pull from Torah, and then there is the minhag, which is the tradition we use to obey the mitzvah or to give the mitzvah arms and legs. And irrespective of your belief system or your love or hatred of Jewish tradition, this holds true in every instance of the Jewish collective observance. Good Shabbos.